Welcome back, Professor.
Thank you, Dr. Dubois. It's good to be back. Good to see you again.
You as well. How was your trip?
It was surreal.
That was quite an address you delivered.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to your feedback. I did my best to, as you say, weigh my words wisely and make it count. My mentor back at Hampton, General Armstrong, used to say, give them an idea for every word.
That speech was an emasculating indoctrination of abject submission on the part of our entire race. It was an embarrassment and an outrage. That's my feedback, Professor. Those are the ideas your words gave me.
I see. Well, then, if it was so embarrassing and outrageous, how then would you explain the fact that everyone there, regardless of race, received my words with adulation and enthusiasm? And every colored person I've seen between Atlanta and Tuskegee has rushed to shake my hand, congratulate me, and tell me how moved they were by the occasion.
They were blinded by the joy of seeing one of their own standing where no black man has stood. Don't you be blinded by limelight. They were just so proud to see you up there that they failed to note the concessions that you were making on behalf of our entire race.
So you perceive the judgment of Southern black folk as being so weak that we cannot discern when our interests are being marginalized or well represented?
The masses are prone to fads, easily swayed and dazzled by celebrity. I, however, am not. Your counsel to our people overlooks elements of true manhood.
Overlooks true manhood?
You were appeasing the powers that be.
That's a very harsh assessment, Dr. Dubois. But I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Coming from your northern upbringing, I can understand how you would find certain parts of the address disagreeable. Your formative years were spent in an integrated school system, an integrated society. It makes sense that segregation seems backwards or wrong to you.
My insight is not limited to my northern upbringing.
Oh, but it is. You grew up sleeping in a bed with the floor beneath your feet and a fire in the stove, nice shoes and clothes. There is much you take for granted that many of us here in the South are still learning the meaning of.
That is no excuse.
Excuse? I did not ask to be excused. I am merely stating that things would appear quite different to you in terms of progress and regression had you been born into slavery like I and many millions of others were.
That's a given.
If you had to start your life's work with nothing but tattered clothes on your back, love for your family, and your faith in God, you would see miraculous progress all around us.
Perhaps you're right, but I was not born into slavery. I was not trained as chattel. I have never felt the sting of the whip. So instead of progress, I see young men who travel great distances in search of education and enlightenment being put to work in a brickyard for a sharecropping Confederate white supremacist. Tell me, how can that be seen as anything but regression?
Dr. Dubois, at this point in the discussion, I am clearly at a disadvantage. In that, it is very easy for you to second-guess the school I have built. But it is impossible for me to do the same to you. If you think lowly of my methods or intentions, perhaps your time and energy would be better spent elsewhere.
Let me be clear, Professor. I'm not questioning your character or your motives, or least of all, your work ethic. It's plain to see that you're sincere, dedicated, hardworking, and you are desperately needed here. That is why I'm here. I want to help you, but I cannot ignore the fact that your methods are profoundly flawed.
Specifically in what regards?
First and foremost, we must always demand civil rights and social equality. Always. Your counsel to our people was, don't worry about fancy things like opera houses and constitutional rights. Worry about getting a job in a white-owned factory. People have given their lives for equal rights and equal protection under the law, and the battle is ongoing. You were up there making an impassioned plea to give up that fight and give back the gains that others fought and died for. You were conceding and bartering away things that are not yours to concede or barter.
I did no such thing. I conceded nothing. I bartered away nothing. I suggested a utilitarian course of action. Yes, I could have stood up there complaining for 5 minutes that we're getting shortchanged, but what good would have done? My solutions do not consist of protests or bitter complaints. The course of action I propose is practical, not political.
Modus vivendi. Compromise. Accept a little injustice for a little while. Just keep the peace and hope that things will somehow work themselves out.
Compromise is not surrender, and cooperation is not subservience.
Certain things must never be compromised. Some ideals must be upheld at all costs. There are certain lines that the enemy must never cross.
The white man is not the enemy of the black man.
Anyone who considers the Negro race inferior to the white race is the enemy. And you were shamelessly pandering to that enemy. And for what? To procure us the status of a dog that enjoys the fireside by his master's feet. It was disgusting. We'll lay down our lives, if need be, in defense of yours. That's a dog's mentality. How dare you?
How dare I what? How dare I attempt to build up trust between the races? How dare I fail to advertise our injuries and point a finger of blame? No, how dare you berate me for seeking the cooperation of my white neighbors when you've built your career cooperating with yours?
I only deal with those who respect me as a man. I have no use for those who do not.
Work wins respect.
Whether you choose to acknowledge it or not, there are those who will never respect us, no matter how hard we work, simply because we are black. There is a mentality that we are up against, a lie that is woven into the fabric of this society, and it pains me deeply to see you being used to proliferate it.
So you are suggesting that I promote second-class citizenship? Dr. Dubois, I have been an educator for my entire adult life. Now that, after decades of struggle, I have somehow caught America's attention and garnered her support, I understand that there will be scrutiny. I am prepared to deal with the criticism of my peers. Indeed, I appreciate it, but my critics shall not be my guides nor my motivation.
You did not just happen to catch America's attention. This was devised. They chose you because they knew that you would say just what they wanted you to say. You stepped forward. Remember this, Professor. You stepped forward and you answered to the title of Representative of Negro Civilization and Negro Enterprise.
You encouraged me to do so. Remember? Answer the call. Be the voice. Remember all that? I never asked for that title.
I thought you would understand the ramifications. Obviously, I was wrong, because you used the opportunity to wholeheartedly assert that we as a people should remain silent about our rights as citizens. You shrugged off the fact that our people are being denied the power of the ballot and murdered without repercussion. You instructed our people to kindly accept whatever crumbs fall from the white man's table, thank him graciously, and help him whenever and wherever possible.
I did no such thing.
We'll buy your surplus lands, make bloom the waste places in your fields, and run your factories. Quote, end.
Our people need land. They have excess. Our people need jobs, and their factories need workers.
We should run our own factory.
And I agree 100%, but we must start at the bottom, not the top.
We've been at the bottom for centuries.
Still, there are steps to be taken. In the meantime, we need employment and experience.
And you said, the wisest among my race understand that agitation of questions of social equality is extremist folly. Extremist folly?
If you are going to keep it in its intended context, you must finish your sentence. You quote, "Progress in the enjoyment of all privileges that will come to us must be the result of severe and constant struggle rather than an artificial forcing." I've said the same thing directly to you in conversation, and you've had no problem with the idea. Why should it appall you when I say it for all to hear?
Private conversations and nationally publicized speeches are two different things. You dismiss the idea of social equality as extremist folly on the grandest stage ever afforded any Negro in America. I was dumbstruck. You, a friend, a mentor whom I trust and admire, you were up there unraveling my life's work more effectively than any enemy I have ever encountered.
My purpose is certainly not to impede or undo your life's work. I applaud and encourage gains won in the area of law and politics. That, however, is not where my efforts are directed, because I believe that true respect cannot be gained through litigation. It must be earned.
Regardless of pride or prejudice, laws govern society. Laws enslaved us, and by law we were set free. How can you, of all people, overlook that?
I do not. What I am saying is that regardless of any amendment, ordinance, edict, or election, in the end, both our Creator and our fellow human beings will judge us by the works of our heads, our hands, and our hearts. Thus, I place higher priority upon training of the head, hand, and heart than I do upon shaping the law. That's all I'm saying, and that's all there is to it.
The flaws of your philosophy are being exploited.
We all have our faults. I did the best I could.
You cannot simply ignore the ongoing efforts to reshackle freed men.
Maybe you could have done a better job. Who knows? Perhaps someday you will have the chance.
That was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's going to take years to undo the damage you've done.
All right, I've heard enough, Dr. Dubois.
You set us back decades, if not a century.
I get it. You didn't like
it will
the
be
speech.
remembered
Fine.
as
You're
an
entitled.
abomination.
I said it's enough! Now, if there are any other matters you'd like to discuss, feel free. Otherwise, you are dismissed.
Just one more thing, Professor Washington. I resign, effective immediately.
Every day has its pluses and minuses, love. Neither change the fact that there is work to be done. That's a wrap.